All right. So I want to start by going around and just like having each of you check in with me about where your assignment is and how you're feeling about it. So Sophia, do you want to start?
Yeah. So I feel that I'm done. Like I
Awesome.
basically like I wrote everything. I feel good about it. I'm just like waiting to hear about like from feedback from my classmates, and then um I'll make like changes, and then when's the due date? Like due date.
Final due date is um let's see, it's Monday, May 4th by midnight, which
Okay.
is like a week from
That
now.
next week.
That's next.
Okay. So
Um
yeah, I'm just waiting for like feedback, and then I can make some changes, and then I'll be pretty much
okay.
done.
And so you're feeling pretty comfortable with the way that your paper is developed and you've turned a new draft. Great. Okay, Tamara, how are you feeling? I think you're muted.
Sorry, yeah, I was. I'm feeling okay. I need to work on the incorporation of my outside sources because but everyone else, I changed a lot of my sources, so the information I initially had wasn't relevant. So I found the new sources that I'm going to use, but I haven't super incorporated them yet.
Okay.
I know like the quotes that I'm going to use from them, but yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Great. So you feel like you have finished your research process and that you're finished finding sources and you just need to
Yeah.
integrate those sources? Okay.
But then the other thing I'm have to figure out is with what I wrote so far with my analysis of my main source, I'm not sure if it borders on summarizing.
Okay.
So I need to review it and check.
Great. That's a good thing to be looking for as you're moving from like draft 1 to draft 2, because sometimes we do summarize and think we're analyzing, and it's only you can only see it in hindsight that like, oh, I'm not really offering any new perspective on this. Great. Okay, so going forward, you would like to integrate more sources. And what does your draft look like that you submitted for today? How close to final?
It's it needs like 2 paragraphs being like my author didn't address these issues and they're very important. I think that I want to include, and then it needs a wrap-up conclusion.
Excellent. So you're oriented around how your outside sources relate to your primary source.
Yeah,
That's what I'm going to be looking for, is that you are not just like giving an overview of what the topic of your topic, but that your outside sources are they agreeing with your author, with your primary source author, or are they disagreeing, or like you're saying, are they offering information that's important that your primary source author doesn't address? Because I mean, like in your case, I know can you tell everybody what your topic is?
yeah. So I'm discussing like why affordable housing is like basically the system is very failing. That didn't come out in English, but why NYCHA housing is terrible, in a terrible state right now.
And what
And
type of primary source are you using?
it's a visual essay that includes quotes and captions and a little bit of context. But it's like a news article from the New York Times, and it takes quotes from different people who are either in housing, managed housing, or research housing.
Great. So in a source like that, you probably are going to see a lot of interplay between the pathos and logos. You're in that you're going to
Actually, my source doesn't really use so much logos. I
oh,
think
interesting.
ethos and pathos. That's my argument.
So your role in the integrating outside sources is to discuss the factual data that backs up this emotional argument.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. All right, Coco, how is your paper coming?
It's essentially complete. It's just that I want to see other people's feedback on what else I could add. There is a question where for my argument, I said that the writer uses pathos and logos, which is almost really similar to what Tamar has. but I didn't really focus on the audience that she's targeting to. I'm just wondering if that's like a general requirement for all of our papers. Like, do we have to address who the readers are? Because I just kind of breezed through it as it's New Yorkers and blah, 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 who are concerned about the topic.
Yes. So I'm in that analysis section. I'm not just looking for how the argument functions, but the rhetorical situation of the argument. So I want you to very specifically address who the audience is and what the author did to attempt to reach that audience. Because unless you have a full understanding of how the rhetorical situation is functioning in your primary source, you can't evaluate whether or not it's successful. So remember, the first portion of this essay is analysis. Second portion is evaluation. So you want to talk about, does your author successfully achieve that connection with New Yorkers? Because if the aimed at audience is New Yorkers, but the content doesn't meet that need for that audience, then you don't have a successful piece of rhetoric, even if it is persuasive to other audiences. So in your evaluation of your primary source material, you are going to be discussing how well your primary source not just argues, but argues in the context of its specific audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so would I be addressing the audience in the analysis and talk about how it's successful in the evaluation one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you address who the audience is, or my recommendation, and you don't have to follow this rigid outline that I'm suggesting. I just think that this is a productive way to attack this essay. My suggestion is, in your analysis, you address who the audience is and what your author is doing. Like, why do you think that's the audience? Why do you think New Yorkers are the audience? And then in your evaluation, then you can discuss, like, well, the author could have better got at this audience by doing XYZ, or the author really successfully achieves connection with this audience because of XYZ.
Okay.
And then you probably are going to be in that discussion talking about the tone of the piece, the length of the piece, the formal features of the piece, like what visuals the author's using, and the length of the paragraphs. Those are all the things we've been working on all semester. I want you to be incorporating into this paper. All right, Kate, check in with me about how.
Yeah, okay. So basically what I did, so from like the proposal and the annotated bibliography, I changed my entire thesis, and what I did was like incorporated questions into my thesis, and then like I answered them like on the body paragraphs. Is that fine?
No, thesis statement cannot be a question. Thesis statement must be a statement.
Okay.
Um,
All right. Okay.
So like a question is not an argument. A question is the beginning of a conversation. And
Right, okay.
I need for you to be asserting an argument.
Okay.
I know, like, the way we speak is very different from that. When we ask questions, we are often making arguments.
Mhm.
We are, but when we write, we need to be very direct and clear about the claims that we're going to be making throughout the paper.
Okay. right.
So while the ideas might be there in the questions, you need to think about reframing them as statements.
Okay.
Do you think that'll be possible for you?
Yeah.
And did you change the primary source that you're focusing on?
No, I didn't change the primary source. I stuck with that, but I gotta change my thesis statement again. I guess because I followed the proposal. I don't know why. So that's why like I incorporated questions in there. So yeah.
Just a personal, like, it really bothers me when students put questions in their papers at all. It bothers me a lot.
Okay.
So that is something that I try to correct.
All right.
instead of like,
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
I might have done that, but I try because I said like the author leaves some things ambiguous, and then I wrote like he is asking his readers to ask this question.
that's an assertion. That's not a question.
Okay.
So if a sentence ends in a question mark, those are the things I don't want.
Okay.
But like, you're making a claim for ambiguity. That is a claim.
Okay. For some, I did it a few times, and I feel like sometimes it was more of an assertion. It's fine. Now I'll go back and check, and sometimes it was more of a question. I don't know. I will check for that.
When you're using a question in your writing, it should be a signal to you that you could phrase something more directly. When you're using a question, you're asking your audience to form the thought instead of forming the thought yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I think what I wanted to criticize my author for also. Does that
Totally.
make
That
sense?
sounds good. Yeah. I think that rhetorical questions are a lazy way of making an argument. And like you can discuss that with your author. You can just say like, I briefly glanced at the piece that you're working on, and like it looks like very image heavy. You can say that like the author's strength is in the pathos rather than the writing itself, rather than like the text itself. It's in the pictures.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah. Going back to Kate, so what does your draft look like that you submitted for today?
Well, I guess I kind of have to fix it because I mean, I added questions onto my body paragraphs, and now that you said that, I mean, I have to go back and fix it. And also, you were saying earlier how you're supposed to relate like so the primary source and the other sources back to the primary source. I don't think I did that.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of feel like I have to go back and do that. I feel like I was summarizing more than just relating it back to the primary source, so I have to do that as well. And I feel like I have to work on my closing paragraph as well. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so this is something that a lot of your classmates are struggling with, is just like grasping what the focus of this assignment is. And this assignment is asking you to sort of move backwards from a research paper. So rather than like giving an overview of a topic and making an argument about that topic, you're just taking one source and talking about one source and how that source fits into context. So this, if you guys are going to go to grad school or go into academia, this is sort of practice for writing a literature review. So you're discussing like not just what's going on with your topic, but what's going on in the conversation about your topic, what's going on in the writing about your topic. And your goal is to pick apart just one piece of writing or visual, or video, one text, and discuss how the argument is functioning, whether or not it's effective, and then where does it fit in the broader discussion of your topic in general. What's it missing? What does it bring to the table that's unique to your piece, if there's anything? Does this piece need to exist, or is it better stated in another piece?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Kiki, how do you stand on your paper right now?
Well, the only thing I'm really struggling on is trying to connect it, like by my primary source. I'm trying to connect it with all the other sources I'm planning on including. Well, I already included it, but it's just, I don't think it sounds right, or it doesn't mix well. So I was thinking of changing my primary source, but then that means I have to change the entire paper, which I mean, I don't mind doing, but yeah, that's just what I'm stuck on right now.
Okay, so what is your primary source?
It's a scholarly article based on like poverty, and it discusses about like the economic effects of the poverty and how like social relationships also affect poverty and things like that.
Okay, and what other types of sources are you integrating?
I was thinking of including the current pandemic, the coronavirus source, with poverty, since the job loss is insane right now, and another source based on like statistic data, because the source, my primary source, doesn't really have a lot of statistical data. It's more like statements and theories. So I was thinking of including that as like a counter argument piece, and then the additional sources were mainly like focused on Medicare and how it connects all into poverty. So yeah.
Great. I think it would be awesome if you could connect that theoretical piece to the real life situation that's going on right now and the economic crisis that's going on right now. So when you're thinking about bringing in outside sources, so this, you're in reverse from a lot of people, in which your primary source, if you don't change it, is a scholarly article, and you might be integrating more pop culture sources.
Yeah.
When you're bringing in secondary sources. So think about the theories that are at the core of your primary source and whether or not that tracks with the popular sources that you find. So think about what the relationship is between your primary source and your secondary sources that you're finding. Like, does the theory that your primary source author talks about the relationship between poverty and connection, like, that is something that's super relevant right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Super relevant. And what is that theory playing out in actuality? What do you see? What do you see in the news sources?
Well, in the news sources that I've like encountered, they basically discussed how the pandemic is creating a whole lot of stir within the job loss, and how one check doesn't always cover a household, like a 4-member household. And basically it's like the author just discusses like how this situation of the pandemic is increasing, and that the government should definitely do something about it.
Okay. So how right now, what is your integration of sources look like right now in your draft?
Well, wait, what do you mean by integration?
Like, how did you pull in your outside sources?
Well, I wanted to make a connection to our current, like exactly what's happening right now, so it'll make sense as to why this topic of poverty is being brought up. And I thought that by including this, it would make like a good connection, because a lot of people don't really recognize poverty as a big issue until they experience it themselves. And currently there's a lot of people experiencing job loss. So I thought that by directing this source, people would see it as like, oh, so now that we're all like struggling to make money, struggling to live, we can see how people who are actually in poverty experience on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. What is the thesis of your primary source?
Well, the thesis of my primary source is mainly about how the economic and social factors plays in poverty and how it affects poverty, like how it affects like the poor people.
That's not the thesis, that's the topic. What is the argument of the piece?
Well, I wrote, in agreement with Spicker's perspective, poverty exists because of the economic gap between the wealthy and poor. Therefore, society should focus on decreasing the rates of poverty by providing health services and Medicare to the poor.
Oh, so that's super relevant. That argument is incredibly relevant to these outside sources you're bringing in that are about like what's going on right now. So this current crisis that we're in absolutely highlights those principles of your scholarly article. Like, we're seeing the shortcomings of our healthcare system. We're seeing how many families are just one paycheck away from poverty.
Yeah.
So I think that I think it would be really pertinent for you to bring in like discussion of, like, I imagine you structuring your thesis statement as something like, here's the author's argument, which he makes he or she makes this way. I think it's effective, not effective. And then your final portion of your thesis statement could be like something like, and as current media portrays, one can see this phenomenon happening in our contemporary society. So you're going from the theoretical to the practical. That's the jump that you're making in your paper, or the jump that I imagine you making in your paper. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's go to questions. You can just jump in if you have questions. Comments, concerns?
I think so far I understand where my paper is going at, so I don't really have any questions, and you like already pinpoint out the specific ones that I have trouble with. So I think so far I'm good.
Great, okay. Everybody hanging in there okay? Safe at home? Okay. This is gonna be over eventually.
I hope.
Thing is though, like even when it is like everyone keeps talking about like a second wave, and I feel like that's probably bound to happen. So it's kind of like it gives me anxiety because like I want to go back to campus, but at the same time, it's just gonna run rampant.
I so feel for you guys. I can't imagine being in college right now.
Yeah.
It would be heartbreaking to like have to do, I think it would be heartbreaking to have to do the whole education like without in-person interaction with the professors and your classmates.
Yeah, and the amount of migraines I've gotten just by using my computer is insane.
Was just thinking about that. Like I've been looking at screens nonstop, like my phone, computer, my TV. I'm like, like it's a lot.
Totally, like we work on our screens and we do entertainment on our screens. Okay. Well, if you guys, I encourage you guys to exchange contact information with one another so you guys can reach out to each other if you have questions as well. But I don't have anything concrete going on in my schedule right now, and I am really open and available if you guys want to meet one-on-one and discuss. And also, like, I've relaxed my policy on reviewing drafts. So if you would like for me to give your draft some extra attention, I'd be more than happy to do so if you email it to me. Yeah, you guys are doing great. Hang in there. We can do this together.
Yay. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
so for our I'm sorry, quick question, like about the like when we have to upload our essays to our website that we made like back at the beginning of semester, we should be doing that now, right? Or are we gonna like have a session to do that together? That way it's everyone.
I'm gonna do a session that's about. I have a Zoom session scheduled for like doing academic commons together. So don't feel like you have to be doing that right now. If you have a good grasp on it and you want to go ahead and do it right now, you're welcome to. But I am going to offer you guys some more time with me to go over exactly how that works.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about portfolios? No?
No.
2 more assignments in discussion posts, but 2 more big assignments and then we're done.
Wow.
Wait, what are the
What's the
portfolio and the reflection?
Portfolio and this essay 3.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So we can email you our essays if we want you to like take a look at it, see if we're on the right track. That way before we turn it in, it's like, I feel really good about it.
Yeah, I mean, I won't give as detailed feedback as I will on your final draft, but I'm more than happy to take a look and just to see where you might need nudging in a different direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
you. You guys, if you guys don't have any more questions for me, we can finish up. But thank you guys so much for coming. I like honestly was so scared that nobody was going to show up or just like one person was going to show up. Yeah. All right. I will talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Stay safe.
Bye. Stay
Stay
safe.
safe.